Hey everybody, just wanted to put together a really quick video talking about how we add vectors by components. In this one we're going to look at adding three vectors together, which really isn't that tough if you, as long as you have the x and the y components of each of the vectors. So we have three vectors here, and let's call those vectors maybe vector A, vector B, and vector C. And given are the components of each. So A has a negative x, or an x component of negative 3, a y component of 2. B has an x component of 2, y component of 3. And vector C has a x component of 3 and a y component of negative 6. And this is how we go about doing it. What you need to do is make a really quick chart that puts together all of those components. So what we're concerned about are the x components and the y components. And the chart is going to look something like this. So for the three vectors, vector A, it's negative 3 and the y component is 2. For vector B, it's 2, 3. And for vector C, it's 3 and negative 6. And all we need to do now is sum these up downward. Okay, so we take all the x components and we sum them up, and take all the y components and sum them up. Pretty quick, simple sum. So the x components equal 2, and the y components, when you sum those up, they equal negative 1. So 2 plus 3, that's 5, minus 6, negative 1. And so your resultant vector has a x and a y component of 2, negative 1. And then once we have the x and the y component, we can just use our standard ways to figure out what the resultant vector is. And that's going to look something like this. Let's see if I can just move this out of the way just a little bit. So when we want to figure out what the magnitude is, we have the formula A, or any vector, is equal to the root of ax squared plus ay squared divided by, underneath the square root. And when we solve that out, so we have ax, which is the 2, and ay, which is the negative 1. So that would be 2 squared plus 1 squared underneath the radical. So the magnitude of the resultant vector comes out to be 2.2. Okay, and so that's the resultant magnitude. And of course you would need units. I didn't include units here. And then the other part would you'd be solving for the angle theta, and theta is equal to the arctan of ay divided by ax. So this is ay divided by ax. So theta is equal to the arctan of negative 1 divided by 2. And when we plug that in, notice that's a negative number. What you end up with is a negative angle, 26.6 degrees, and that's negative. And that sort of makes sense, actually, if you think about it. Right? So that we have the magnitude and we have the angle. Because the y component here is a negative value, that means that our angle is going to be below the x-axis. And that's how you take three vectors and add them by components.